Okay. One of the ways you create depth in a painting and something called atmospheric perspective is that you recognize that the farther away things are from you, two things. One, you see less detail, and two, you see less color. They're more gray. Now, I had made this area darker than my original painting because I wanted to model these trees some more, but I decided I want to take just a little bit more color out so that it's more gray. So I am just literally taking a paintbrush with no pigment on it, keep washing it out, and I am lightly touching and lifting out some of that color, but I'm also doing it in an irregular pattern so you get the illusion of individual trees back there. And you see I'm lightening up that because I want that background set of trees to be gray, more gray than the trees that will be coming after it. And as long as I keep cleaning my brush, even if I dry it on a paper towel, I can begin to lift that color. Now look, I just dried my brush on a towel after that paint was wet, and now I'm lifting it out, and you see I'm graying down that back area there. And I want that because the bushes in the front, I'm going to wet this. I'm wetting this with a wet brush, dry my brush on a towel, come back in, and I can lift some color out. Isn't that neat the way that works? And by doing it in sort of a modeled fashion, I'm creating the illusion of many trees back there. But I wanted to gray this down some. I'm going to do a little bit more here. I got it too dark when I laid it in. Get it wet, dry my brush on a paper towel or cloth towel, and then go back and dab it. Now, again, this is to taste, you know. You have to do what feels right to you, what looks right to you. But I wanted to lighten this up a little bit. All right. All right, now we're going to go back and we're going to put in our bushes along here. Again, you have your choice. Do you want to use the dry, not dry brush, but dry paper to which we add paint? I'm going to add a little bit more color to this. In fact, I've been using this blue-brown. I might add just a touch of green now. Not much, just enough to change the color a little bit. And let me show you, I've been mixing these paints over here. I might want to try it on my board to see what this looks like. I might want a little bit more brown. Yeah, and maybe just a little bit more green. But I'm not trying to create green bushes. Now I'm going to come in here and I'll do it both ways again. If I come in here and that's too much paint. I want to have it more dilute. I'm going to add some water to that. But if I add water, how I make that not quite as dark. We can come back and darken it. Irregular strokes like this, and I'm creating these little bushes that are along that fence row or hedge line. I'm going to taper it down there, come in on this side. We'll go back and clean up that edge of that snow. My brush here isn't quite as pointed as yours is. It's really worn down, so I'm going to have to clean this up a little bit more in a minute. And I'm making these smaller than the trees. Let's say these are just, might even make it a broken line. These are bushes, scrub trees, that kind of thing along the edge of this field. All right. I can take my 1/2 inch flat, wet it a little bit, come in here, and I can clean up that snow edge that I want, because I want that to be nice and even, and yet it's kind of soft, you can see there. So I've begun to create this hedgerow. Maybe that's all you want to do. Maybe that's sufficient, what we've done right there. It doesn't have to be having a lot of detail in it at all. If I want to go back and on the edge, if I want to go back and touch the bases of them a little bit, I can do that to create a little bit of contour. But I don't want to do, that's pretty dark over there. I'm going to have to lighten that. I'm going to take a clean brush. All right. Now I'm going to clean up that edge with a brush that is damp, but it's not loaded with water. I keep wiping it off on the paper. All right, there we go. Okay, so we're continuing on here. You'll notice that I've got a big tree line here, and then I've got the barn area. Um, we'll go ahead and put this little brush row in here. I've got a road that's coming out here. I want to be able to show you how to deal with that so that that shows up. But we can go ahead and work on finishing up the that little brush area across here. And I'm just doing this where it's dry paper, and I'm doing the paint on the paper and just creating these little mounds. If I wanted to do the wet and wet technique, I can end up with those nice little wispy areas of tree line or bush line. I'll make this a little bigger over here. And then as we move down the tree line, make it smaller. That's another thing you got to think about in terms of perspective. You know, this is going way off into the distance there, and it's closer to us, so we're going to make it a little bit darker in a minute with some brown and green, but I'm also making it a little bit bigger as I get closer to me. All right, a little bit of brown, and I want a little bit of green. And I'm trying to make this a little bit dark. Now this is going to dry lighter than what you see here, but I'm trying to make it darker than this area. And I still think I've got that a little bit too dark than I originally intended. I can always go back in here again and lift out more paint with just a wet brush. But we're going to let this set up. Just putting the edges on there. Okay. Now, oh, don't forget these little valleys here. You see, and they're not going to be big. They're going to be small little pieces, but it adds to the contour by coming in here like this. And you know where those lines are. There we go. All right, so you can see now how I'm beginning to create distance and depth by doing two things. Number one, I'm making sure that I'm trying to keep this grayer than this. It's not quite there yet. May have to pull some more of that pigment out. It gets a little bit deeper in color as you move forward. You have to think about the fact that things closer to you are going to appear bigger than things that are farther away. And then finally, to add to contour, I'm putting in some shadow right here on the edges of some of these fields so that it feels like that hill is rounding. Now when we get to this piece, and this will be in our next mini lesson, I'm going to show you how to put in this road and then begin to box in this barn area.